It all began as a bit of a laugh. I was a young guy, dating a young girl, while working in a mostly female office. The girls were a lot of fun, always joking around and coming up with crazy ideas. One day, for example, they gave me a mug that said "Tears of my exes," and the whole office burst into laughter. It was all in good fun. They paid attention to me. Sure, but my heart belonged to my girlfriend, and the thought of her being unfaithful never even crossed my mind. But then, one of my colleagues came in with some ridiculous news. She'd read somewhere that if you iron your man's underwear and sprinkle it with red pepper, you could figure out if he was cheating. It was laughable, but we had a blast making fun of it. That night, I didn't mention it to my girlfriend. Camilla was incredibly jealous, and I didn't feel like stirring up drama. The next week, 3 of my colleagues decided to test this life hack. And believe it or not, 2 of them showed up at work with bruises. But at least they had their answers. They were sure their husbands weren't cheating. I found it all hilarious, until a 3rd colleague asked me for a favor. Her boyfriend had felt nothing when she put the fiery underwear on him. According to the hack, that could only mean one thing: he was cheating. She approached me during lunch, asking if I could help her spy on him. I shrugged and agreed, even though it seemed a bit odd. I had to cancel my lunch plans with Camilla, but she just laughed and said I was reading her mind. She'd been thinking the same thing. She was on her way to see a therapist, feeling a bit under the weather. Half an hour later, we were parked near the building where the couple rented an apartment. I parked a little further down, in a quiet spot, and we waited. My colleague was on edge. Her hands were shaking, and the coffee cup she was holding trembled with every movement. Trying to calm her down, I placed my hand on her wrist and looked her in the eyes. I was about to say something, but then I caught sight of something out of the corner of my eye. I turned, and there, skipping down the sidewalk, was Camilla, her heels tapping on the pavement, her cheerfulness lighting up the street. She stopped at the entrance and pulled her phone out of her bag. It only took a minute or two, and then a guy appeared to meet her. They shared an awkward hug, and then his hand dropped straight onto Camilla's behind. I swear, when that jerk went in for a kiss, I was ready to leap out of the car and start throwing punches. The only thing that held me back was my colleague's hand, which gently landed on my wrist. "This is my boyfriend," she whispered, choking back tears. "I didn't know how to tell you, but I thought if you saw it for yourself, there'd be no doubt." "How did you find out about this? How is it even possible?" I asked, feeling a strange mixture of disbelief and anger. "That stupid pepper trick." He didn't react at all, and that made me suspicious. So I started digging, and I found messages with some girl. Then, this morning, while he was in the shower, a notification came through confirming a doctor's appointment. She explained, her voice barely above a whisper. "But how did you know it was my wife?" I asked, still trying to put it all together. "Social media." "Oh, look, the taxi's here," she said, pointing. The 2 of them climbed into a cab, and we followed them. It wasn't long before they pulled up at a hospital entrance, and I felt the last shred of doubt dissolve. I watched them walk into the building, and without thinking, slammed my foot on the gas. We sped back to work. It felt like a punch to the gut. Camilla, with all her jealousy, had gotten herself caught up in betrayal. I couldn't stay at work another second. I rushed home, storming into the apartment like a hurricane. First, I started packing her things into a suitcase, but then I froze. Anger coursed through me, burning from the inside out, until there was nothing left but ash. I ripped open Camilla's dresser drawers, grabbed her underwear, and stormed into the kitchen for some red pepper. The next hour was strangely productive. I sprinkled pepper on the panties, ironing them with everything I had. By the time evening came, I was ready to reap the rewards of my efforts. After her shower, Candela slipped into her clean underwear and climbed into bed. Just a few minutes later, her eyes went wide in surprise. "Something's wrong," I said, smiling affectionately as I brushed her hair back. "Yeah," she muttered, looking confused. Probably allergic to cheating, I replied, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Camilla froze. Then she shot up out of bed and bolted for the bathroom. I took that as my cue to pack my things. As I did, I could hear the water running. But she didn't realize that the water would only make the burning worse. Without looking back, I left the apartment, leaving her and her lies behind, and checked into the nearest hotel. I added Camilla to every blacklist I could think of. Sometimes, people's silly life hacks seem ridiculous, but in this case, it actually gave me the closure I needed. We never met again, and honestly, I'm glad we didn't.